Twisting, turning, falling, flying, living, dying. Such is the way of our existence in this short life. Hello, Reddit. This is my first shot at a story on no sleep, with most of the occurrences being real and a few embellishments. Now that my foreword is out of the way, if you have ever experienced a lucid dream, it can be pretty freaky, especially when the dream begins to leak into your everyday life. For example, I once had a lucid dream about my loft bed catching fire. Naturally, I got up to pat it out and was smacked in the head by my ceiling fan. It turns out that I was unintentionally doing the same thing in reality and got a nice sized bruise on the middle of my forehead. This was the night before school picture day, mind you. To be honest, I was a little confused, as I didn't remember waking up, just suddenly in pain from a fan blade. Of course, I'd get over that and laugh at it now. If it wasn't for a more common event, I wasn't always a lucid dreamer as a child. I would frequently have nightmares, ranging from terrifying to surprisingly funny. On the funny side of them was a dream about a couch eating my family. Needless to say, I was a bit of a strange child, but I digress, as it was just a figment of my imagination. I obviously have no pictures, and shall have to simply describe this dream. A white, black canvas of a world, a single structure used for protection, a humanoid but bird-like creature waiting for its silly prey to come out from their hiding spots. One person was emotionally close to me, always deceived and killed by the monster, and me, I was always last. I would always see the creature feasting upon the other person. By instinct, I ran far. I had no goal, no other shelter. Every time I would endure this dream, I would be caught. I was never fast enough. I would wake up on the verge of tears after watching myself slowly devoured by this beast. And I never told anyone. I just assumed that it was pretty normal. This dream persisted until at one point I dreamt it every night. And I thought about it every day. It was just so captivating. Every night I would attempt to escape the ravery wrath, but to no avail. When I finally got around to telling people, I was unable to piece together the words, and the horrifying nightmare became as spooky as a children's story. It had been 2 months of this. When I was done, I was going to fall asleep and figure out how to rid myself of this oddity forever. That night, I had a tough time falling asleep, as if the world was mocking me, and yet I still found myself in the empty void with my opponent. I was through with this dream and feeling crazy. In my dream, I simply waltzed out from under my cover and dove for the unknown creature. I wrestled with it. I fought with it. I strangled it. The Birdman, surprised by my retaliation, was unable to cause any real damage, but still scratched up my back and chest. Eventually, I was able to pin Mr. Birdface to the ground, choking it. Eventually, it stopped breathing. Then its heart stopped beating, as I sat there, triumphant over the curse that had been plaguing me for months. I felt myself awake up. When I was about to scream and prance in delight, I noticed something was quite all right. My chest and back were covered in scratches and claw marks. When I looked over to check my clock, I noticed the bird creature sat at the end of my bed, staring through my window. I immediately froze. In hindsight, freezing was likely not the best idea. The creature slowly turning towards me and walking across my bed. It stopped when it got to my face and leaned in towards me with its musky, hot breath, but you could hear wheezing from its throat and lungs. Slowly it spoke, twisting, turning, falling, flying, living, dying, such as the way of our existence in this short life. It then began to vanish as my eyelids grew heavy, and I began to dream once more. This weekend, my family and I went to Universal Studios. It was a blast, pretty much the whole way through. In particular, I loved the Forbidden Journey ride. If you haven't rode it before, you should try it. If it's still open after this, even if I'll ever ride it again. I rode that ride 3 times in one day. I loved it so much. On the 3rd day, we went to the Islands of Adventure for the last time and stayed there late, 8ish. And I asked to ride on the Forbidden Journey one last time. After a little argument with my mother, I was allowed to go back and ride it. I rushed through the empty single rider's line all the way to the front of the ride for the last time, as the normal line would have taken far too long normally. See, 30-minute wait times, and no one is waiting in this line. There are 2 employees, one Hufflepuff witch, and a Gryffindor guy. I ask why nobody is here, and the Hufflepuff guy says the ride is temporarily closed for technical issues, and everyone just cleared off. I told them I'd be happy to wait for them to fix it. They could get it done before the park closed. They shut down the ride and went off backstage to fix the thing, while I listened to the Sorting Hatspur quotes from the movies and warnings about heart conditions. So 20 minutes go by, and the park is close to being closed for the night. I'm about to leave when the Gryffindor guy comes back and started the ride up again. He told me I could go on to be the last rider of the day. So happily I walk onto the conveyor belt and load myself into the magical bench. The ride goes on normally until it reaches the end, where you fly into the great hall of Dumbledore congratulates you. The ride just stopped, and the image on the frozen screen and the audio just kept playing. There was a robe lying on the floor that wasn't there the past 3 times I rode it yesterday. Confused, I looked around for the staff to fix the ride or let me out. I sit there for about 15 more seconds when a wand falls from the rafters above in front of me, directly over the robe. I look up, and the Hufflepuff staff member from earlier is hung from the ceiling, obviously dead. At this point, I'm frozen. I'm shocked at what I just saw. The lights go off for a few seconds and start up again, and the ride continues moving normally to the end. The restraints lift up as the ride ends, and I push them off and take me off. Looking behind me constantly, I was even more worried about not seeing the Gryffindor guy on my way out. Right now, I'm in the car heading back to the hotel. I haven't said anything to anyone, but my questions and fear just keep growing. Was the other guy a murderer? Did the girl hang herself? If so, why was her robe on the floor? And why did the wand fall from the rafters? Why would the killer deliberately drop the wand in front of me? If there was no killer, that means someone hung themselves just above me. Please send me advice, any way that you can. Who should I tell? How do I explain this to my parents? Do I need to watch out for a murderer? I apologize for not being a very good storyteller, but I didn't think of anywhere else to put this. This seemed like the best place to tell you all about my experience. I was awakened by the strange feeling last night. The only light was radiating from the moonlight through my window. That's how I saw it. I have never been more afraid. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. All I could do is watch in terror as this thing glided toward the end of my bed. It didn't walk. It kinda looked like it rolled. just slowly inched its way to my bed, slowly rolling. I could see the outline of its eyes. They were white, but they didn't stand out. It was weird seeing how dark this figure was. The head was disproportionate to its body. The arms were abnormally thin. This thing wasn't from here. This thing was a dark, longish figure. All I could hear was the sound of something like TV static mixed with loud vacuuming noise. God, that noise! I tried to do anything I could to move or scream. I couldn't. I could only move my eyes as this thing slowly hovered to the end of my bed, inch by inch. It was watching me, and I was watching it. At this point, I was wondering what my dog was doing. Kaiser was a German Shepherd. I loved this dog beyond words. I see him panting as heavily as I've ever seen him do. He was visibly distraught. He didn't move either. This thing finally made it to the end of my bed. It did something to my dog. It just stared at Kaiser until Kaiser ran off the bed into the hallway. Now it was just me and it. I was paralyzed. I didn't know from fear or it was one doing it. He just looked at me for what felt like hours, just at the end of my bed, staring at me. Tears are rolling from my eyes. I was afraid to even blink. After what felt like an eternity, this thing glided away from my bed, out of my room and down the hallway. Once it was out of my sight, I could move again. But I didn't. I stayed lying in bed until the sun came up. Kaiser was dead in my kitchen. I haven't touched him yet. It's almost been a full day, and I still don't know what to do with him. I guess I'll have to bury him. But I didn't know if the thing left. I haven't looked for it. I've only been in my bedroom and the kitchen. It doesn't feel like it's gone. I feel like it's watching me. Whenever I walked out of my bedroom, I hear that static. It's piercing my ears. It's so loud. I think it's gone or it's leaving. The static is fainting away. I just checked on Kaiser. Nothing changed since I lost my best friend. All I can hope for is it doesn't come back tonight, or really ever again for that matter.